Got the world on a string, sitting on a rainbow. I got the string around my finger. Lucky me. Can't you see I'm in love? There's a song that I sing, I can make the rain go anytime I move my finger. Lucky me. Can't you see I'm in love? Life's a beautiful thing as long as you hold the string. I'd be a silly so-and-so if I could ever let it go. I've got the world on a string, sitting on a rainbow. Got the string around my finger. What a world, what a life I'm in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Staten Island, and welcome to the Lambert Show. And it's been around for about 10 years, and the show is always dedicated to the memory of my mom and dad. My dad, who had a show here in the 90s and actually in the year 2000, and he was Johnny Carson, I was Ed McMahon. So I wound up later on getting the opportunity to be Johnny Carson, but I certainly always wished that we were back to the original situation. The show is always about people who help people, live music, are those two categories. And today I believe live musicians and live singers and writers help people, gets us through the day. So my guest today is, my God, extraordinary man, human being, and member of our industry, Mr. Randy Edelman. Anyway, Randy has such a rich history, and he has written for so many movie scores. He's written so many tunes, so many songs that I don't really know where to start, I have to say. So I'm going to start with, let's talk a little bit about movies. Can we do that?
Sure. And
I want to talk about the COVID-19 song later on, too. So talk to me a little about all these movies that you've done. I have names here, but...
Well, the movies came about after doing for many years. I mean, I always consider myself, I'm a musician. I'm not a songwriter. I'm not a composer. Mm. I'm a musician. And the movies, you don't just get into scoring films. I mean, you have to have a lot of different musical areas that you've, really gotten very adept at orchestrating and being able to write quickly, dramatically, and of course coming up with you look at an image and you have to come up with something that's appropriate for that particular scene quickly. You have to do it fast, and it's got to be right. It can't be fast and wrong, and it can't be slow and right. You have a very short time. So anybody that does this kind of work on a constant level and all the different genres that someone like I have been involved with has to be able to do that. Now, in this day and age with the technology being what it is, it's a much different medium than it used to be. However, I have a real traditional musical background, so I have that traditional background. There are other people now, taking nothing away from them, they're just as brilliant, but they come at it through different technology. A lot of people do film scoring, big-time scoring. They don't know how to read or write music. And you say, how do they do that with this complex? Because there's something different going on. They still have to have that same ability in their soul to do the kinds of things that I just talked about. So to get around to answer your question is that I came to film scoring and to writing to an image, be it TV, film, years after I'd done many, many other things, always doing the kind of things that you had to do in order to be able, when the opportunity may present itself, that you can kick ass and come through.
I know that you wrote Weekend in New England, which Barry Manilow, together with your talent, made a hit. I also saw in your bio that you wrote songs that Streisand recorded, and the Carpenters and things of that nature. Yeah. And like you're saying, these are kind of the training wheels to get to the ultimate...
but they didn't necessarily. I mean, you can be a film composer or any kind of composer. Writing songs is a little different art. It's something you have to feel it, and you can write a song very, very fast, whereas you can't write a film score fast at all. Right. You can come up with a theme and see something, but it's a lot of hard work. and dedication, and none of that is applicable in songwriting. Songwriting is instinctive. You don't have to be a great musician to be a great songwriter. Just look at Irving Berlin or the rest of them, who are brilliant, fantastic. But so it's two different mediums. And as far as writing for the Carpenters or Olivia Newton-John or Barry Manilow or Patti LaBelle or any of these people, I never wrote anything for them. I just wrote songs for my little albums, which didn't make too much noise at the beginning, and people heard them some way and recorded them, but I never wrote a song for anybody.
Right. Yeah. But in movies, you're writing for the movie.
Movies is...
And who do you check with? In other words, I often think...
You mean movies?
Like when you're writing for a movie, you check with the director, the producer...
There's only one person. In television, you're checking a lot of times with the networks and the producers. But, you don't have any time to do that either. But as far as feature films... The composer is only working with one person, even though no matter how big the film is, it's a director. And that director is coming over and driving you crazy every day, and you don't have the time. You need him out of there. And what you need to do is you have to look at the picture and think. And unfortunately, you don't have that much time to think because you got to do it fast. So this is what every film composer is up against. And very few people can do it. You have to have a certain kind of... congenial personality, which I don't have, and seriously, no. I mean, it's all got to work together, or you can't get through the process. And the process is people say, well, how much time do you have? How much time they give you? It depends what the story is on. Each picture has a complete different history and lineage, and it goes back for years. The stupidest films. Have 50,
Can I just read some of them? I just wanted to read some of them for my general public and to give you correct.
Staten Island.
The Staten Island public. The movie Twins, Kindergarten Cop, Beethoven. I don't have them categorized like you. I know you see them differently. Gettysburg, The Mask, Last of the Mohicans, Dragonheart, Ghostbusters II, I think it was, and of course My Cousin Vinny and the Bruce Lee story. Out of them, any memorable experiences?
You know what?
Each one were?
Each one is and the memory is in the, not whether the picture was a big hit or not, which is always nice, and which I fortunately have many of. It's in that relationship with the director.
Right.
If that worked out well, then it was really a good experience. Although you may say, well, in the end, if anybody doesn't see the picture and you had a good relationship, is that good, or is it better if you hate the guy and it's a monster international hit? Right. So, but mostly a composer, that's what I take away from it. Because when you're done writing the music, after they come over and they change it and do this, it's given to the director and the producers, and they go on a mixing stage, and it's the sound effects, the music, the dialogue, and they can totally mess up what you've done. And you're not there. The composer's not there. And so it's when the movie is really finished, it's always a surprise.
It's a surprise.
Now, so
is it ever disappointing?
It's always disappointing because it's never exactly what you did.
Yeah.
You spent months and months and wrote something great at 4 a.m, and then it's not. Where is that? It's not there. They took it out. Or they play it so softly against the sound of the rain or the wind or the cars driving. Amazing. So this is what you. So what it is with most of us who do this, you move on.
Right.
And you hope for the best, and you hope for those few moments when with a film where there's so many. I hate to go to films when they're shooting. I don't want to. It's just so much. So and so's approaching. To do a scene. Well, I like when they're done with it and they send it over and I see it and I can sit there by myself and maybe at, like I said, 2 or 3 in the morning, you come up with something and you go, that's your moment, and hopefully that moment stays there and that way in the picture and it appears like that, and then that's your contribution. Obviously, it's a huge contribution to any motion picture, the score.
And is there simpatico or a give and take with any of the stars at any point, or
that's a no? That's a no-no.
That's a no-no. Yeah.
Stay away.
Stay away.
I've had several experiences, and I won't divulge any names.
Okay.
But yeah, you don't want to, especially like if a star is involved. Sometimes instead of paying you $10, they'll give the star $8, but you can become the executive producer. Oh, they like that. And that means, what does that mean? Nothing except, well, they can come by my house maybe and make a comment. You don't want that.
You don't want it. There's a rumor, and I don't know if the rumor is true, but I could just throw it out there anyway. When Breakfast at Tiffany's was written, and Moon River.
Oh, they hated it. That's only be in that movie because of Audrey Hepburn insisting on it. That's
and the bottom line, I forgot who wrote that. Forgive me.
Henry Mancini.
Henry Mancini, and apparently he went and wrote the song because he knew her, and he felt that
he
she
had
had
done.
And then they said, well, no, she's not going to sing it. We're dubbing it. And the rumor was that Henry Mancini went out of his mind and said, I wrote that song really for her. Yeah. And they had a big scene. He said, let's tell you what, if she doesn't record it, I'm out. That was rumor on the street.
I think that a lot of that was true. And he had a daughter who was a good singer who sang, may have been Two for the Road, or one of those great songs that he wrote for a picture. I don't know if that was after or a little before. But anyway, yeah, that's true as far as them wanting to take the song out.
Isn't that amazing?
Can you imagine that? Yeah.
Imagine
there's all kinds of stories like that. And all kinds of, by the way, great things that great composers wrote for movies that the score is gone. Another composer came in, and believe me, and there's my two best stories. This is a completely different kind of thing, but Stravinsky left during the war and came to the United States, and he went to Hollywood. Why did he go to Hollywood? Because he could actually make a living doing something where he got paid. Forget about all the great stuff he had written.
Right.
Couldn't they just couldn't. Where's the theme? And all that stuff, great stuff. And the other great story is Leonard Bernstein, whose friend Aaron Copland told him, you know what, this is something you should be doing, because Copland did several Grapes of Wrath and all those great scores. And so Bernstein did one film, great film, On the Waterfront. And after they messed with his score, he never scored more. He wrote musicals like West Side Story, but he had nothing to do with that, the movie or that was a musical. Right. But as far as scoring films, he never went back, because they took his music and they put it over here. And I know what that, it's like, what? And someone like that, he had a lot of stuff going on, let's face it.
Yeah,
he didn't. So he just wouldn't even speak to anybody about scoring. Yeah.
The list of movies, I think I've seen most of them here. And I was always the last of the Mohicans fan. I just was. And I didn't realize you wrote that score. It was a great score. Anything specific on that movie?
Well, yeah, that's a kind of
I'm a Lake George guy. It's all about the Lake George area.
I do know. My parents used to go there. I always wanted to go there. We're going to Lake George. You're on an island. It sounded so exciting. They never took me.
Never took
No,
you?
never took the kids. That was like an adult thing. I don't know what was going on. But
anyway, my kids grew up there, kind of.
Lake George,
back and forth.
Yeah.
Loved it.
That and, oh, God.
You talking about the area?
No, I would say a name and you'd go, holy, the places they used to go. These weren't exciting places.
Right.
People in those days, not everybody was flying off to wherever. I'm going to think of one place. They did shows there. They did like shows.
Upstate?
Yeah, it was like a musical as they do. Bill Hans. Remember that name?
No, I don't.
I don't even know how I came up with that name.
That's very funny.
Okay, there's a guy. Anyway, I forgot. Lake George. Go back. Oh, Mohicans. Mohicans is kind of a no-no. It's a very famous scoring story in that I supposedly came in and was asked to come in because there were problems with the other composer. I had done that a couple of times, only because I was asked. I had nothing to do with it. Someone calls you up and they ask you to do something. So when I came into that picture, and I had very, very little time with a great director named Michael Mann, who hadn't directed. He had a series called Miami Vice that was very successful that he produced. But as far as a film feature director, he hadn't done that much. And it was also starring a guy that it was a disaster, the picture. It was 3.5 hours long. It was historical. And when I say nobody was in it, you'd say, well, what about Daniel Day-Lewis? He had won the Oscar for My Left Foot. Yes, but it was for My Left Foot. So nobody had ever... It was never a commercial thing. So the whole picture was a nightmare when they called me saying, we're having some trouble, could you do this? And I came in and I had very little time. And I did a lot of it, which is why I have a co-score with someone else who, by the way, I've never met. I don't know. No, never.
Never?
No. But what happened is, and nobody wanted to pay any attention to the music, and I said, I had just done Gettysburg a little before that, and I said, you know what, I'm just telling you, there's a really emotional thing with this character, Daniel Day-Lewis, in this whole movie. And people are, What? There's no song. There's no. So when the picture came out, nothing. No soundtrack. People say, what are you doing? It's the biggest selling soundtrack in the last 25 or 30 years. Soundtrack, not songs, just score. Okay, score. Nobody would do it. So I went into this little studio that I have with my engineer, and we took that music and we put it together. And I said, somebody's got to do this. And I found a little company called Morgan Creek at the time, who were sort of going out of business at the time, who had a label. And they put it out, and right away the thing was a monster hit. And so we got nominated for all these things. So we get nominated for British Academy Award. So this guy was from England, and he hated my guts for coming in, even though it wasn't my. He went there. The Golden Globes, I went here. But we got nominated for all this stuff, and the album was selling. And so it's just one of those funny stories that happened from something that, you know, like, how did this happen? Well, it just happened, and the music happened. It's still is happening now.
It's amazing.
You know,
I think there's a big plan. There isn't. Something very interesting happened in the green room here when you told me that the different way that you originally thought of Weekend in New England and what ultimately resolved. And then you played it. Could you do a little of that?
Well, I could do, yeah.
Show our audience here.
Well, okay. Well, if you know anything, you don't have to be a jazz guy. The song was originally a takeoff on like you know, if you're fond of sand dunes and da ba ba da da da.
Oh yeah.
Okay, but it wasn't a takeoff on it. It was just the idea of it. Yeah, yeah. So it was sort of a jazz thing, except I had this very accessible, I guess, simple chorus. But the original song was these changes. You lost the piano. Last night you waved goodbye. Now it seems years back in the city where nothing is clear but thoughts of me holding you,
very hip,
bringing us near. And tell me, when will our eyes meet? And also, it was a 1, 2, a waltz. Well, nobody. So I was, you know. Anyway, I recorded the song that way on an album of mine, and then subsequently, in a short time later, it was heard by someone I went to a big 90th birthday celebration, the great Clive Davis, last night, and Clive heard it. This is years ago, and called me because you didn't just call me. There's always a story, and we don't have time to go into it, and said, "Hey, I really like that song, but." I knew what he was doing. He couldn't get. Nobody could. Even Barry Manilow couldn't. Right. So I quickly did an assessment at the time, and I had to make a quick decision. Am I going to tell these guys to like go shove it, and like hey, it's a song. There it is. Record it. Be my guest. But you can't, you know. Or can I listen to what they're saying? Possibly because this guy Barry Manilow had a couple of big hit records, and be as smart and do it. So very quickly, I mean, maybe it took me 10 minutes. I simplified the song, went into a little studio in Soho in London, and sent over a cassette. Did it live, not overdone my voice. Just played the simplified version. I had done at 3 or 4 in the morning, and then it was 9 in the morning, and he was going somewhere, so I sent a cassette. I didn't make any copies for myself. Did it in the studio and sent it that time. Cassettes were the thing.
That was the deal.
Sent a cassette over to this hotel that Clive was at, and within a couple of weeks, Barry Manilow recorded the song. Now, a little while later, and never thought about it again. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm waiting for the phone call. No, it was just, I did it, didn't feel good about doing it because I liked my original thing.
Right.
That's
your baby. Yeah.
So that a little while later, when I was going back to California but stopped in New York, going back from London, I went up to Clive's office, who I didn't know really at the time, and we go in his office and he shuts the doors, you know, and he plays me this full-blown, produced, huge record. Yes, was it my song? Yes. Was it my song that I rewrote? It's not like Barry changed it or he changed it. I changed it. But you see, when you write a song and you live with it for a couple of years and record it on your album, and it's not that. It's the fully recorded version
of the
thing that I did at 3 in the morning. Yeah. So it was like shocking. And of course, it became a big hit. But
You mind doing it? Would you mind playing it?
Well, what?
Whichever version you want.
Well, I'm not.
This is a special moment. You know?
Last night I waved goodbye. Now it seems years. I'm back in the city where nothing is clear but thoughts of me holding you, bringing us near. And tell me, when will our eyes meet? When can I touch you? When will the strong yearning end? And when can I hold you again? You know.
Ah, it's beautiful. That's really beautiful. You sing it. You really sing. You sing it like you wrote it. But I also, as I digress, Bette Midler's favorite line, I digress. My Cousin Vinny, I mean, that movie's like so beloved.
Well, another movie we made, little movie.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Iconic, I mean. Iconic.
Well, but nothing. A nothing movie.
Yeah.
No attention. We did it. People knew who Pesci was, but he wasn't, and there was a girl in it. Nobody ever heard of the girl. She was never done anything in her life. She ended up winning the Academy Award, which nobody wins for doing a comedy, and people were freaked out by it. But anyway, and I always thought she was great at the beginning. Now, I was in it because I was scoring it. But right from the beginning, it took place, so I'm always, and I'll do it in my show on Saturday night, it's a show, it's a movie that takes place in the South, okay? But guess what? The two people, Pesci and Marissa Tomei, they're Brooklyn people. They're Brooklyn. And very Brooklyn. So what do? What kind of score is it? You know what kind of score it is? The score's got to show, it's wallpaper. It's got to show where it's taking place. It ain't taking place in Brooklyn.
That's right.
It's taking place, so you get lazy.
Yeah.
So this is the feeling of the score, and then it gets funny. And, again, when you're scoring comedies are very hard to do because dramas, even though people always hear music from drama, they say, oh, it's so beautiful, this or that. That's pretty easy because the scenes dictate the emotion. Right. If it's going to have music, pretty well, just like in an action film or something, a horror story. You know what it is. In a comedy, it's like, what do you play? If the people are good, guess what? You don't play any comedy. I don't write hardly all these big hit comedies I did. I didn't write funny music. I could put it on for you, and it'd be like that. That's a bit fun, but it's not funny. And if the people in it are really good, they don't need music to do the funny part. You need to score the adventure or the romance or the darkness or But as far as doing funny ha-ha stuff, if it's really good, you don't have to do that too much. But that movie was just a nice surprise. But even when it came out, it wasn't a big hit, but it's become a big, and I've got a couple of those.
Yeah.
So, first Adam Sandler picture. I mean, he called me up to do that.
Which one was that?
Billy Madison. I mean, the worst picture ever. I had done a lot of comedies, and he called me up, and I didn't know him at all. And he said, you got to do it's my first starring role. And I said, listen, I've just done all these comedies. I'm trying to turn my ship around,
Right.
I'm a serious composer.
Right.
Now, I was delighted that I had gotten into this area and was doing all this stuff. And he said, so you'll do my movie, it'll be the last one you do, and then you'll do, And I said, no. And then, long story, twisted my arm a bit, and I did that. But these kinds of things, they just were not, While You're Sleeping, Sandra Bullock movie, a little cute movie about, a girl who takes tolls in the subway, and a guy falls into the track. Yeah. But these were small things, and I did them, and they turned out. And also The Mask When The Mask came out, I didn't want to do that. I hadn't even heard of the guy.
I remember that.
Jim Carrey. Well,
I remember that. Yeah.
But he's a monster talent.
Yeah.
So when I see that, and I didn't want to do it, and my kid, who was maybe 4 and 5 at the time, he used to. I said something. He said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, but I don't think I'm going to do it." So he says, "Well, did you see In Living Color?" Kid's 5 years old. He used to watch the show In Living Color. I hadn't heard of In Living Color. Right at that time, his first movie had come out called like Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I took Noah. We went down to like Grauman's Chinese in the afternoon, and I see this Pet Detective picture, and I see this guy, and I say, okay, this is a major guy. You know, you can just tell. There's a new kind of. Right. And then I called the next day, and they sent over The Mask with a green face, and so I did it. And that also, when we did it, we spotted the music in a little motel in Burbank. You know, by the time it came out, that Pet Detective movie had become a hit, and it was a big thing. Right. But a lot of these things are not exactly right now what they appear to be. They weren't that. Other things are big deals, and you do them, and it turns out they're nothing. You know, I mean, not they're nothing, but
I know what you mean.
The expectation is higher than the actual outcome.
Couple of just observations. You really play. You know, a lot of I've met obviously writers of all types. You know, the best, but I could see you really are a musician. You know, which I'm reading your biography.
I mean, I come out of a very.
But I love.
Yeah, but I have to.
You're a player.
I have to play every day. You know, you can't. It's like being an athlete.
I know.
So in order to
I have to sing.
To sit down and you've got to really work at it if that's your thing. And with me right now, I'm really into that.
Playing?
I'm into the playing aspect.
Yeah.
Yes, it's sort of it's kind of weird, but
funny,
that's if I don't do that, and I know it's got to be just like dead on, and you pull off certain things even within these songs. It's evolved to that with these songs and going back, because right now I'm going back sort of and doing some of these old songs and some new songs, and of course putting together a way that I can do these film scores, because people don't go and do film scores. They're not written for piano. I do them with orchestras or whatever the way that you produce them. So in going back now and doing these shows and having to do this on a piano and make it sort of exciting for people listening, I have to put them together in a certain way, and it's all about the playing.
Do you play with other musicians at times? I mean,
absolutely not. No,
you don't.
I always do, but when I record stuff,
I'm saying not live.
This I'll only do it myself with a piano, or I don't do it at all.
Right, I get it. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the COVID-19 song.
So
I think we're good in time. So
last year when all this was going on with the COVID thing, and I was. Well, I was locked up in my house and in my studio, but I wasn't really locked up. And I had a lot of stuff that I was doing because stuff had been in like post-production, and then they were done shooting, so they got the stuff to me. So I was busy. But I had a little time to think about, because I never thought I would go back to writing songs. I always appreciated the stuff that I had done, and there was always something interesting happening with my songs somewhere.
Right.
But I wasn't into writing songs, but I came up with this idea one night, not a song about, the virus, not a really fun, happy thing. And it was called Coming Out the Other Side. It was actually, the title should be Grab Your Hat, Put Your Best Suit On. That's the title. However, that's not a great title. So it's called Coming Out the Other Side. And it's an up song about, just as a general concept, when this is done, we're going to all go out again.
Get drunk again.
That's it. And so
is it something you can play or now?
I can play it. I can play it a different way, though. Yeah. This is the record I did all myself in my backyard. And it's almost a takeoff on the feeling of it is like 1957 Peggy Sue, Buddy Holly song. Now, with that guitar. Although now what I'm going to play you now is not. I did a different version of it, so this is slow. So I'll just give you a little.
Yeah, a taste.
So this is concerning the last year. You wake up with a smile on your face, 'cause today You can't run from your place. You've been locked in your house all year long. But today you begin a new song. You've been pushed from your purpose in life and been scared by the edge of a knife. Now it's time to fight back and break out. Time to see what this life's all about. And just take a good look all around you. Let your heart be filled with pride. Grab your coat and all your belongings. Hey, you're coming out the other side.
Wow, that's really nice. Listen, it sounds great that way. I'm sure the up-tempo thing is good too, but that's a really cool tune. So where are we now? Are you working on movies? Have you?
Yeah, I'm doing some things now, which I never. When I'm working on something, I never. It's too much to get into. Yeah. Yes, and now I'm back into this song thing. And
you are back into.
Oh yeah, I'm in it. Yeah,
I didn't know where we were.
Oh
so,
yeah.
Okay.
I'm back in there.
So for you, recording them yourself.
Yeah.
In the same process, if someone hears it, they can. Of course,
yeah.
re-record
I mean,
it.
it's
right.
there if somebody wants. But I never. I don't. Write anything for someone. Everybody thinks I did, but I never did really.
Right.
I never did that. I mean,
Right.
and I was always, in the most happily surprised at these very different things and versions of people that heard something. Obviously, I mean, the last story that I'll tell you was a song that I wrote, just a simple song called "Isn't It a Shame?" It was so simple that on my first 2 or 3 albums, I didn't even record it because it was too bland or too pretty, too obviously. It was kind of like a pop ballad, but very simple. And so, but I did on my 3rd or 4th album, after having these albums not happen in a commercial sense, I went to one record company, and it turns out that some publisher years before that had taken this song of mine to this guy that was now at this new record label. And I put the song in. I knew the story. I remember. So I put the song in. He says, "Stop. You wrote that song acting like this is some big hit song." I said, "Oh, yeah. I'm going to do it. I could see you're ready." He said, "Oh, you're going to do that song?" And the next day they called me and said, we made it, we'll make the deal for you to do your 4th album, which I thought, you make 3 albums. They don't happen as on a commercial sense. Right. So I recorded the song, put it on the album. About a year later, I get a call. Patti LaBelle has recorded the song. Great. They sent me a thing down. They said, "Cool. Oh, it's going to be your new single." Really? That song, Patti LaBelle? Well, she was doing a concert in Santa Monica or something. So I went over there and went back and met her. And that was in the intermission. She said, the next part of the show, I'm going to do my new single, your song, and blah, blah, blah. And she does this version of it that it's crazy. First of all, it's like 10 minutes long. It was a simple 3-minute song, but it was great. And they obviously edited it down for a single. And it was a big, at that R&B hit. You could still have kind of a R&B hit, regional hit. It was things hadn't changed because now it's completely different. Right. Doesn't happen anymore. So that happened, blah, blah, blah. Great. Cut 20 years later. A guy in St. Louis listening to a budget like Patti LaBelle's Greatest Hits or something, some little thing that Epic had put together. He hears this thing that he'd never heard before. And he decides he's going to, it's not sampling it, he's going to take the record and he's going to come up with a new concept. His name was Nelly. So I had the biggest hip-hop record, rap, hip-hop, #1 record, got the awards for all.
That's amazing.
And it's that song, Isn't It a Shame, a billion years later in a whole, now that's the extreme, but this is what can happen, and it's all still the same little, isn't it a shame, my friend, sometimes such a love must end. Isn't it a shame you have to laugh before you cry? Isn't it a shame? It's still that thing right in that silly song that's still there that somebody took and did something different with. And so that's what's kind of cool about this stuff. Once you put it out there, you never
know where it's going to go.
And so I've had a lot of those nice experiences.
What do you think of, like, in today, the word album? You know, we say album, but that doesn't really exist anymore.
No, but it does.
But do they record 9 or 10 and anyway?
Well,
I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't. I have and nobody gets albums anymore. And unfortunately, kids, they think, oh, you just go like that and you get the album. You don't have to. And people, they're listening. It's all streaming. The listening experience is different.
Right.
But I must say, I normally just don't look at the Grammys anymore, maybe because but I did look the other night, and I have to tell you something. People are back into playing and performing. It's not, a couple of years ago, it was like, give me a break.
I know.
Now, there are people who are pretty brilliant at doing something. And so I find that interesting and kind of it bodes well for the future. I'm not commenting really on songs and stuff, but I can see that there is definitely something that's
some musicality.
Absolutely. I see it. I saw it. I don't know.
Well, some of the great, the Lady Gagas of the world, she really sings.
Well, she's a real talent.
She's a real talent. There are some that, and when she first came out, she did a lot of the rock stuff. Talent, no question. Yeah. Then when you read about her, she started in jazz and really wanted to be you could hear it. Wanted to be a jazz singer, and I guess just like Bobby Darin started out with Splish Splash, and then he got into some real great stuff.
You got it on tape.
Got it on tape. I hope so.
Yeah.
Bobby Darin used to spend his summers here on Staten Island. He's like a quasi Staten Islander. Because in the old days, you were talking about going up to Lake George. For 100 years, Staten Island was a tourist town, believe it or not, because there was no airplanes, like you say, no major highways. So it took them an hour and a half to get to Staten Island. We had rides and beaches, and it was a major economy was tourism. And he came from Manhattan, and his family used to be here all the time. A couple of friends of mine were friends with him as kids, and spent his time in South Beach. Where are you from originally?
Teaneck.
Right here. You're here. You're.
I'm from right here, and I never went in. So then I left, and I never. Then I went a lot of places. But yes, I was just I was here, never. Pretty much.
It's funny. The reason I mentioned Long Beach before, not to insult you.
No.
But I'm just kidding.
That's fine.
But my friend, who was originally Brooklyn, moved to Staten Island, went out to California about maybe 20 years ago, and opened up a beautiful restaurant in Long Beach. Now he's got 15 of them, and he's like the guy in the restaurant business. And not so long ago, he wins Best Pizza in America. Wow. And I'm driving, and I hear that this Michael's Pizza in Long Beach, and they're going, and could you imagine it happened in California, So I called the radio station. I said, listen to me. He may have gotten the award in California. He's from Brooklyn. This is Brooklyn Staten Island Pizza. Straighten it out.
Yeah.
Anyway, first of all, the enjoyment that I'm having right now, I could do this for about an hour and a half, but I know we both have schedules.
I have a schedule with the Statue of Liberty.
I know.
I don't want the fog to lift.
Truthfully, I did do a song in the 80s, and it was called Lady of the Harbor. I co-produced it, and fabulous song. It got a lot of play, and CNN took us on as the theme song throughout the world.
Great.
And we couldn't sell it in America. We sold it in Japan, and Japan thought that was like a #1 hit in America. We couldn't get ourselves arrested, so we got arrested in Japan, but we couldn't get arrested here.
Well, that's okay.
So we got a few more minutes, a strong 5. What would you say right now is your mindset musically? Is movies, writing, total?
It's what it's all of the above, because that's what it's been.
Right.
I never, though usually I focus on something. It's not that I limit myself, and I always open myself up for just having had the the experiences that I've had and the opportunities that sometimes come from extraordinarily unexpected places, I'm open to everything. And that's the way I've been my whole career. I never, like I said, I was a songwriter because at that time, if you could carry a tune and write a good melody, you may be able to get a record deal. That's an over-exaggeration, but that was the truth. When the record business changed from the old days of a publisher takes a song to a producer at a record label, who takes a song to the artist on his roster at the label, that obviously all changed years and years ago. And gradually, it became only the main people selling records, obviously, with any excitement, were the people who wrote and recorded their own material.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it was the Beatles or the Eagles or Carole King, or whoever it was.
Right.
And so if you wanted people to record your stuff, you had to do it yourself.
Yep.
So I fell into that. Now, if I didn't have that in my gut, as far as writing songs, I mean, I could get into the story about my girlfriend dumping me, you know.
Oh, we didn't talk about it.
Well, because we don't have time to go into that.
We got a
but
couple
that's
of
how.
minutes,
Well, no, that's how. How do things start? How do you suddenly start writing songs when you never wrote a song? You know, well, you're walking around New York City like in a fog, having no money to go to a psychiatrist, not knowing about mental illness, not knowing what anything is. What are you going to do? I started writing sad songs about it.
That's funny.
You know, and what happens? A song about New England. You know, I mean that this is what happens. You know, it's the old story. One door closes, another one opens. But I was always musically turned on to, just like right now, if someone calls me about a certain kind of film, I don't care. I don't care what it is. I don't care what the budget is. I don't care who's in it. I care sort of what's it about. And if that turns me on musically, I'm turned on.
Yeah, immediately.
And that's how I've always been. And then I just do it. And hopefully that excitement, just like it was when I did Gettysburg, which I didn't want to do, but I was interested in this guy named Ted Turner. I was interested in a guy who, I did something a few days ago, and they printed it, and they said, he told a story about how Ted Turner lived in his mansion no, back up. He lived on a cot for 20 years in Atlanta.
Really?
On a cot, trying to convince people that a 24/7 news station would work. And they all laughed at him for over 20 years. Now, yeah, he had a father who was in the billboard business around, but he wasn't exactly, well, he stuck with it. And so the thing is, when Gettysburg came up, and I didn't want to do it for a variety of reasons, although I was a Civil War buff, I remember hearing about this guy. He won the America's Cup. He had this odd background, blah, blah, blah. And, of course, he'd started CNN. So I met with him, and they had temped Gettysburg with 2 pieces of mine from Last of the Mohicans. And he said, he didn't know if I was Bach or Beethoven or dead or a 14. He didn't know anything about me or what it was. He just knew every time one of these soldiers died in their rough cut of Gettysburg, he played this music. He said, that's what I want. And so I met him and got along famously with him, and we became friends, and that was a blast. But it was a blast because of my relationship with this guy. Was the movie that great? No, Glory. That was a real movie made about the Civil War. Gettysburg was kind of a potchkey together thing, although there were great people in it. You know, people's beards were this way because it was done in a much more low-key fashion because it was being done for this new cable station that Ted had started. So it wasn't, he ended up buying a movie studio called New Line. That's why he bought New Line Cinema, because he wanted this 3.5-hour, 4-hour epic released as a feature film. That's how he lucked into, last story, the premiere of a picture called The Mask, okay? Premiere, walk into a bathroom. Now, Ted Turner always said, as soon as he heard the music, my score to Gettysburg, the opening of it, he said, this is a feature film. Forget about the TNT. Forget about episode. Right, all right. Now, so cut to a short time later, we walk into the bathroom standing in front of the urinal, 2 of us taking a pee, right? I know it sounds. And I look at him and I say, you know what? Now, pictures a monster hit The Mask, #1 all over the world. This wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for me. And he turns to me, he says, you know, right, because he bought New Line Cinema purely to release Gettysburg because nobody wanted it, as a feature film. And when he did that, out of the box, 2-3 months later, he had a little picture called The Mask that was exploding because of this guy, Jim Carrey with the green face. Had he not had Gettysburg, which he said he was releasing because of my score, it had to be a feature film. Didn't have to be, but he wouldn't have this thing.
Connect the dots.
That's my last story.
Connect the dots.
Thank you very much, Staten Island. Maybe I'll see the Statue of Liberty on my way back.
Well, I have to say this was really great. You entertained me and, of course, my audience, and not only the audience here, but I'm talking about the Staten Island audience.
I hope so.
They are going to love this, you know, and I'm going to make sure that more people than normal see it. And it was a pleasure meeting you. I am really charged up by your story, but I'm also charged up as a musician by your playing.
When you walk through a storm, keep your head up high. Don't, you go, be afraid of the dark. Where the heck are you going?
Of the dark. Real slow.
Okay, I got you. At the end of a storm is a golden cloud,
Sky,
and the sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. Madonna mia. You'll never walk alone. Tell me what it is.
Three-penny opera.
Oh, the shark bait had such teeth there, and he shows it pearly white.
Keep going.
Just a jackknife at old Mackie there, and he keeps it out of sight. You know that shark bites
Oh my God.
with its teeth there. Scarlet billows start to spread. Fancy gloves, oh, where's old Mackie there? So there's never a trace of red on the sidewalk, down by the river, don't you know? Where the cement bag just a drooping on down. Oh, that cement is it's there for the weight, dear. 5 will get you 10 old Mackies back in town. I hear about Louis Miller. He disappeared, babe, after drawing out all his hard and catch. And now Mackie, there, like a sailor. Could it be the boy's done something rash? I said, Jim Diver, so guitar dream. Look out to Miss Lina and Lucy Brown. Oh, the line forms on the right, babe. Now that Mackie is back in town. I said, Jimmy Diver, yes, a guitar dream. Look out to Miss Lina and Lucy Brown. Oh, the line forms on the right, babe. We're going out. Now that Mackie.
One more. Repeat it.
Oh, one more.
Jenny Diver.
Jenny Diver. So guitar dream.
Gotta have that last.
Look out to Miss Lina and old Lucy Brown. Oh, the line forms on the right, babe.
that Maggie's back in town. Look out, old Mackie, he's back.
Now, you just witnessed a historical thing. Nobody in the world could sing that, and no one in the world could play it. All the modulations, guy's perfect. You have my utmost. Sure, yeah. That was unbelievable.
Very good.
Now,
you can work with my band. You do very well.
now then, I may do that on Saturday night. This guy sang word for word, "You'll Never Walk Alone" from Carousel by Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein II, and the Three Penny Opera Mac the Knife Kurt Weill song. Word for word, he was perfect.
I have to say one thing before we go. There's another rumor, which is that Irving Berlin, who wrote some of the most beautiful songs we know, two members of my band for one 16 years, one almost 40 years, worked for ASCAP. And the ASCAP people, the scuttlebutts were, some of the songs that he wrote were, 8 chords, 10 chords, Easter Parade, these songs pretty. And then they put, he wrote other songs where there were like, chord changes every third second, and they didn't think that he could have wrote those songs because it wasn't of that type, And they talked about the possibility that sometimes years ago somebody could write a song, couldn't get it bought, and you make a deal,
Right.
And I'm sure that goes on.
Well, I don't now. His whole thing was I don't know the exact story. You say is that he didn't know.
He didn't know.
Now, but okay. So therefore, at that time, with a lot of different things, there was obviously someone always there with Irving Berlin transcribing.
Yeah.
Now there's your story. That's a movie in itself. I don't know anything about it.
Well, he had that piano with an F and a C.
No. Somebody had to take. What did he write? He wrote Easter Parade.
Right.
Did he write every note? Someone had to notate it down in those days.
Right.
Not now, because there's technology. No one has to write down anything.
There you go.
But who wrote it down? Was it always one person? How many years did that one person? Well, you know what I mean?
Right.
That's a story.
There you go. That's a good one. Yeah.
I don't know.
Must you dance every dance?
Well,
that tune is so
but
complicated.
You mentioned even the song Easter Parade. All these things are fairly sophisticated from the norm. So I don't know. So I can't tell you.
No, I mean, right. I was just
There's a story there.
There is a story.
But did he? It's a story that he supposedly couldn't play.
Well, yeah, he played.
I know, but those things. How about? Did he write White Christmas?
Yes, and he had a piano with a lever that went to F and C. Yeah,
I know. Well, that's okay.
Yeah,
you
that's
can write
okay.
everything in C.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And if it's not that stuff, it's not the chord changes, it's the inversions of the chords.
Right.
What's
of course. Yeah. Absolutely.
Is what I don't know. And unfortunately, people didn't. Now people have phones. Nobody's got anything on recorded. How was he sitting? What did he do when he wrote White Christmas?
Right.
Well, it was part of a movie. Okay. Who scored the movie? Oh, it says who did something.
Right.
I don't know.
You don't know.
Unfortunately, we don't have it.
We don't have it.
Yeah.
Well, I have you here today, and that's plenty. It's really terrific. I want to thank you once again.
Thank you
for being on this show.
An absolute pleasure.
And they do show it a lot, believe it or not. He gets showed a lot.
Hey, if I'm big in
you're big on Staten Island. You made it. It's a special moment.
Last night I waved goodbye. Now it seems years. I'm back in the city where nothing is clear but thoughts of me holding you, bringing us near. And tell me, when will our eyes meet? When can I touch you? When will the strong yearning end? And when can I hold you again? Isn't it a shame, my friend? Sometimes such a love must end. Isn't it a shame? You have to laugh before you cry. Isn't it a shame? It's lazy.
Yeah.
If I'm big in
Staten big on Island, Staten Island, you made it. Anyway, I usually say good night, and I say good morning, good afternoon, good night. And lots of times on the third or the fifth showing, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. So I normally say, now go to bed, it's late. You better get some rest. And thank the crew here, and thank Mickey and Eileen also for being here. Really, truly appreciate it. All right?
Thank you.
Silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind. Walk on through the rain. Though your dreams be tossed and blown, walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never